Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I'm coming to you all with a review for Mortal Kombat. Directed by Simon McQuoid in his feature directorial debut, and starring Louis Tan, Jessica McNamee, Josh Lawson, and Tadanobu Asano. So really quickly, before I start, if you guys have not checked out my trailer reaction video for Mortal Kombat, please feel free to check that out before watching this one. In that, I go a lot more into my background with Mortal Kombat, with the games, with the different iterations of Mortal Kombat in television and movies, and so much more. I really wanted to flesh out my experience with it and just kind of add to what made me so excited for this film. So please feel free to check that out, and let's get into it. The story is centered around this massive battle between Outworld and Earthrealm, and the focus here is on a young MMA fighter named Cole Young, who finds himself drawn into a quest to seek out Earth's greatest champions in order to stand against the enemies of Outworld. And as you can imagine, it's the universe that hangs in the balance. So let me start with the pros. Quite a few pros here. First and foremost, I'm just excited that this was made in the first place. As soon as it started, I was kind of like, okay, I am here for it. I am excited. I am invested. And may I say that the opening scene of this film really brought it home for me. I was like, yes. Oh my gosh, I think that was such a great opening scene. It was so thrilling, it was so bloody, it was everything I needed it to be. So I think there was an excellent start to this. I love that they chose to give us background on Hanzo Hasashi and Bi-Han, who we later come to know as Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And they were both played respectively by Joe Taslim and Hiroyuki Sanada. So great. And I think overall it was just fun watching some of the favorite characters that we've grown up with and have played with in the games, just seeing them come to life, like so many of them. Every time we saw a new person, I was like excited, like, oh, there's one, oh, there's another one, oh, who's next? Like, I was really into that. Although there were some limitations because of the scope of the story we're telling, I did enjoy the costume design and the overall design and production aesthetics of the film. I enjoyed what we got from Outworld as well as Earthrealm, and especially Raiden's Temple. I love the whole design of that. I love how it looked and how that whole aspect of it came together. I think they managed to make all the characters interesting in one way or another, even though of course I had my favorites. And I would say when it comes to my top 5 of characters in the movie, number 1 would definitely go to Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero was the star of this movie. Like, he absolutely was. As soon as he first appears in the opening scene to the very end, like, his character, his design, his abilities, like, Sub-Zero was scary. And I love that they made him such a powerful and fearsome antagonist, because when I used to play Mortal Kombat, if I had to choose between Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and even Reptile, if we're going to include those 3, Sub-Zero was always my favorite. I always thought his abilities with ice and all of that, that was always enjoyable for me. He was always my favorite. So the fact that they are really giving him his due and they are really making him the character that he needs to be in this, I was absolutely into it. Every time he was on screen, I was like, ooh, I'm ready, let's go. My second would probably be Kung Lao, played by Max Huang. I really enjoyed Kung Lao. And Kung Lao is a character I never really used that much in the games. I never really played with him that consistently. But man, like, I really think they did a great job with not only his look, but also his fight choreography and his battle scenes. I really enjoyed it. That hat. Whoo! I'm telling you, there's a scene where he does something very specific with that hat, and I will not spoil it, but I was like, oh! I was done. Like, oh, that was like one of the highlights. When Kung Lao came through with that hat, yeah, it was over. So yeah, Kung Lao, another really great character. My third, of course, would be Scorpion. The only reason he's a little lower is because we don't get as much of him until a certain point in the movie. Otherwise, he would be like right under Sub-Zero. But yeah, what they did with Scorpion, I really enjoyed. I just wish we had had a little bit more of him. But man, that opening scene, and then when we finally do see him again, awesome. So yeah, really great job. My fourth would be Sonya Blade, played by Jessica McNamee. I actually thought she was a really compelling character, and it says a lot because I've never really played with Sonya. I never was that into her as a character. I think compared to all these characters with all these powers and abilities, she seems kind of vanilla and kind of boring in comparison, but she's always been a good fighter. It's just someone I've never played with. And I was really into her in this. I really enjoyed seeing her journey. And I thought the whole idea of her not really being one of the chosen and her having to really fight to prove herself and battle her way to where she gets to at the end, I thought that was really compelling, and it made for a really interesting dynamic in comparison to everyone else who were chosen. Also, I don't know who decided to have Sonya Blade live in Gary, Indiana, but oh my gosh. I was watching this with my mom, and as soon as they said, oh, she lives in Gary, Indiana, my mom and I were like, oh. So for anyone who doesn't know, Gary, Indiana is actually my hometown. I was born and raised there. Also Chicago. I had experiences in both of those cities, but Gary, Indiana was my primary residence. And so seeing that and seeing the steel mills behind her, like seeing that whole aspect, I was like, I don't know who did this, but oh my gosh, seeing my hometown like represented in this, even if it was only for a few minutes, I thought that was so, so cool. So yeah, shout out to Sonya. She was another one I really enjoyed. And my fifth would be Milena, played by CC Stringer. Milena has always been such a creepy, interesting character, and her whole fighting style is really, really unique. But I love seeing that character here. I loved like just the way they put her whole look together. And when you finally do see her secret ability, shall we say, I love finally seeing that. And that was another character that I wanted to see a lot more of. Like, she really could have been the secondary antagonist here along with Sub-Zero, which she was, but I would have loved to have seen a lot more screen time from her. But that's kind of the struggle. It's just like balancing all these different characters and how much time you give each of them. But she was another one that I really, really enjoyed. And although he didn't quite make my top 5, I have to say Kano, played by Josh Lawson, he definitely was the comic relief of this film. And there was so much going on with this character, but everyone loves like a foul-mouthed, violent, get down and dirty type of character, and he absolutely did that. So whenever he was on screen, like, it added a little extra energy and a little extra oomph to the film, because he definitely brought his all to it. I also loved a lot of the callbacks to the original game and to the original 90s movies, especially with the soundtrack. As soon as I heard a certain something, I was like, ooh, there we go. So yeah, I love the little Easter eggs and the little moments they put there that really took us back to those originals. I was also happy to see that unlike the original films, we got the blood, the gore, the strong violence that is the hallmark of the Mortal Kombat series. You can't have these kind of stories without it. I mean, the first film was good, but I think at the core of it, you still need that aspect of it because it is Mortal Kombat. We're talking fatalities, battle to the death, it's really extreme. So you have to have that aspect of it. That aspect of the story is really important. So I love that we saw that here. There are so many moments where it was just like, ooh, 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 but I was really, really into it. I think they did a great job with that. And keeping with that, I enjoyed the fight sequences and a lot of the fight choreography. Really fun, really intense, and really enjoyable. Now I'm gonna jump over to the cons. Now, I really did enjoy this film overall, but I have to say, there were way more cons than what I was expecting. First and foremost, I think trying to switch things up and create an entirely new character for this universe and for this franchise was not a good idea. And it was even less of a good idea to center this story around him and make him the focus because, unfortunately, Cole Young was not interesting. Cole Young was not a compelling protagonist. I really wasn't invested in his journey. And it's not a knock to Louis Tan, because I do feel like he definitely was bringing his all to the character, but the way that the character fit in, I never felt that I was really rooting for him like everyone else. I think if he was going to be a character, then he should have been a secondary one, or they should have gone with Johnny Cage, or made Liu Kang the focus. I mean, there are so many different ways they could have done that, but I think making this whole new character that no one was familiar with and then making him the focus, which I heard was a decision by WB, I'm like, so are we just going to continue to sabotage the films that we're making? I'm like, I think you guys need to stay in your lane and stop making demands as far as what the filmmakers and what the directors should do with their films. I understand it's your studio and you're the name, but why would you sabotage your own product? I just don't understand that. We've seen it with DC, and it just seems like they're going to continue to do that. Like, I'm just really lost when it comes to that. Now, in my pros, I did mention that I enjoyed the fight sequences and a lot of the fight choreography, but I will say that the editing or some of the timing of the shots and all that stuff, it was very, very choppy. So I think it kind of killed some of the effect of what we were seeing, because it was just kind of like, it needed to be more fluid. I think they could have gone a little bit harder. I think we could have really like pushed it. I've seen a lot of different films where we've seen like very shocking over-the-top fight choreography, and I think they could have gone a little bit further when it comes to that. The special effects were kind of up and down for me. This film was made for $55 million, and although there are times where you can't tell, there are also times where you can. Because when it's good, it's really good. I really enjoyed what they did with Sub-Zero's effects. I enjoyed what they did with Scorpion's effects. Goro was cool, and Milena. There were a lot of moments where the effects were on point, but then there were other moments like with Jax's arms and some of the green screen, and especially Raiden's eyes. That was so distracting for me because it just looked, and I don't know, like I get it. It's hard to make a budget stretch and get everything the right way. So I'm not haggling on that part, but it just was really, really off. It just didn't feel as expensive or as tight knit when it came to the effects the way it needed to, in my opinion. And I think between the budget and then the scope of this film, it just didn't have the epic feel that it needed to have. I realized that this is a prequel / origin film, so we're not getting all of the tournament and the central storyline. However, I still wanted to feel like this was like a bigger film, and it just felt so like contained. It felt a little too intimate. And not because we didn't have all these characters, but just the way the story went and how everything flowed and how rushed everything ended up feeling. It was just kind of like, this isn't fully Mortal Kombat the way I want it to be. At least story-wise, it's not. I think the screenplay and the dialogue kind of gave this a much cheesier, cheaper feel than it needed to have. Like, I understand, like, we don't have to have like a super serious, super dark kind of film, even though that would be interesting. But I think some of the dialogue, especially the overuse of profanity, just got kind of goofy after a while. And I'm not mad at profanity because I expect it. I understand in certain films, like, it's interesting or it's quirky or, just in general, characters are gonna cuss. But there were so many moments where it felt like they were throwing it in just because it was an R-rated film. It was just kind of like, yeah, mother effer, yeah, F that, yeah, F you. I was like, and if you're going to do that, it has to feel more organic and less goofy. It almost felt like they were like, hey, R-rated, let's squeeze them all in there. And just a lot of the dialogue, including the profanity, just felt very forced. Like, we're just kind of throwing certain lines in there and hoping they'll stick. And although there were moments where it did work, there are other moments where I was like, ooh, okay, that did not hit the mark the way it needed to. Particularly with Kabal. Now, I don't know what that character would normally sound like or if there's a certain way he would sound, because I haven't played in a while, and I don't even know if his character really speaks in the games. But however I would imagine Kabal to speak, this was not it. It just, his dialogue just sounded really cringy and goofy and frat boyish. It just didn't fit the character. So that really didn't work for me. Like, Kabal, his design and everything was cool, but every time he would say stuff, I was like, now who wrote this? Now, although I did think the concept of the Arcana was really, really cool, I think the way they used it in the film was just kind of weird. There were moments where I was like, okay, cool. And then there are other moments I was like, huh? I didn't know if they developed that correctly, and for some reason it feels like they put their own spin on that, and it's not quite what it would have been in the original story. So I was kind of like, And that whole aspect got really awkward when it came to Cole Young. Online, I saw somebody say, so was Cole Young's Arcana a gold turtleneck? And I was like, that's not inaccurate because every time he fought, I was just like, so what is this again? Like, what's going on? Which is why I reiterate that he should not have been the focus of the film. If you want to introduce him and have him be a part of the crew, cool. But I just think him being the forefront, that just didn't work. And it also took away all the screen time for characters that were way more interesting than him. So yeah, not the best choice there. The same thing with the Arcana and Jax's arms. I just thought that was a bizarre choice, and I just didn't see them going there with that. That part didn't really work for me. I mean, it was interesting looking, but it just really didn't make sense. And I really hope this isn't the last time we're seeing some of these characters, because I thought they were all so interesting. But then what are you going to do for the next film? And their choices of killing off who they killed off, I was kind of like, Like, I understand it's Mortal Kombat, but it's almost like they were bringing out certain characters just to have a moment, just to kill them off, and hey, now what? So I'll be interested in seeing who we get the second time around, but yeah, I just thought it was an odd choice to have certain characters and not give them an arc that goes beyond just this film, going off of what we've seen. So I'm going to go ahead and give Mortal Kombat a C-. I definitely enjoyed watching. I was entertained by this, but I think the overall vision was flawed. It was kind of murky and it wasn't as clear or as big as it needed to be. We just could have gotten a whole lot more from this, and I didn't want it to feel as rushed as it did. So hopefully with the sequel, they're able to make some improvements. So I think a lot of it did work, but overall, I don't think the whole was greater than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. But if nothing else, it definitely made me want to go back and play my games, because those games, yes, always a good time. Mortal Kombat is currently playing in theaters and streaming on HBO Max. You guys can check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.